Hello, my name is Charity Borders, and my presentation is called The Haunting Truth of Georgia Tann. First, we will begin in an introduction to Tann. We will talk about how she was a social worker, how she was a master manipulator, how she was raised in a poor household, how she was not social, and her sexuality. Tann worked as a social worker at a Tennessee orphanage. For 20 years, she sold and abducted children, earning up to $100,000 per child. There were at least 5,000 children who were kidnapped and sold by Tann. She was a very smart, intelligent person, which helped her succeed in the kidnapping of children. She was also a master manipulator, and this is how she wiggled around into the hearts of many. And later on in the presentation, I will go into more detail discussing how she manipulated her victims. Tann grew up in a poor household, and as a kid, she was socially awkward, but that quickly changed once she was introduced into the social work world. She was also different than most girls, as she dressed in baggy clothes and never wore dresses or girly clothes or did girly things. She was described as having a more manly figure, and at a young age, Tann soon realized that she was attracted to girls rather than boys. She wanted to keep this a secret because liking the same sex was not accepted in the time she lived in. She looked up to her father the most, so she really did not want him to find out her dark secret. Her father would be ashamed of her, therefore she refused to reveal her secret to the public. Next, we'll talk about Tann's master manipulation. We'll talk about how she controlled people like puppets, how master manipulation was one of her strengths, how she manipulated the world, and how she was a director at the Tennessee Children's Home, and how she took advantage of unwed mothers. Knowing how to manipulate people was one of Tann's biggest strengths. The list could go on forever and ever of how Tann manipulated people. For starters, she had the whole world manipulated that she had a deep love for children and that they were her pride and joy. Tann started as a social worker, then because of her manipulation, she worked her way up to the director of the Memphis chapter of the Tennessee Children's Home Society. By her being the director of the home, it made her scandal much easier to cover up because nobody could or even would ask questions because they would fear the loss of their job. Aside from manipulating the social world, she extremely manipulated unwed and poor mothers. Tann would stalk pregnant mothers and introduce herself just when the time was right. Once she discovered that the mother had no family and that they were alone, she would make her move. She approached mothers explaining how excited they must be to be expecting and how excited their family must be. By saying this, mothers would come back saying that they had no help from their family. Tann then would display her fake empathy and empathize for the mothers, telling them how hard it must be for them to be doing this all alone. She offered to help and be there for them and care for them throughout their pregnancy. Of course, newly unwed mothers could not deny the help from a woman so intelligent and manipulating. Tann played these women like puppets, allowing them to think that they were not alone and that they gained a new friend. Tann explained to mothers that she knew doctors and nurses at a hospital and that they would deliver their baby for free and they would be charged for no medical cost. Mothers quickly agreed to Tann's offer because they believed they could trust her. After all, who wouldn't trust Tann after all she's done for them, right? Once the baby was delivered, doctors would tell the mothers that their baby had died, but in reality they were handed to Tann to sell. After this tragedy, Tann disappeared and mothers would never see her again. This left mothers alone again with even more heartache. Now we'll begin talking about the orphanage. Children were molested in the orphanage, abused, and neglected. At Tann's orphanage in Tennessee, children were treated like they had no purpose. Although Tann never actually molested anyone, she openly allowed employees and people she knew to come into her orphanage and molest the children. This is absolutely disgusting. Also, when children misbehaved under Tann's conditions, they were beaten by Tann. Children's bodies were bruised up and down from head to toe. Also, sometimes children were neglected and forgot about and died in a room together from starvation. Not to mention, during the flu pandemic, hundreds of children died because of Tann saying the medicine was too costly. Tann refused to buy penicillin to heal the children, therefore causing the death of hundreds of children in her orphanage. A doctor begged and pleaded for her to buy the medicine to keep the children alive, but Tann denied it. The doctor tried to expose her and get her fired, but because of Tann's connections, the doctor lost his job instead. And if you look closely at the picture on the right, the tombstone represents the hundreds of children who died under Tann's care, and some children not even identified. Next, we'll find out how did Tann find her victims. She preyed on poor mothers. Mothers were easy targets for her. She hired spotters, and she figured that they would be clueless mothers. So how did Tann choose her victims? Believe it or not, Tann had people called spotters who had found lonely, poor pregnant mothers and then report back to Tann their characteristics. Tann wanted to know their characteristics because she planned to sell them to wealthy couples, so she wanted children who had the potential to be looking good children. Once she knew which babies she wanted, she approached the mothers. She chose to take advantage of poor, unwed mothers because she knew they would be clueless about the process. For example, when they gave birth, doctors would put the mothers on anesthesia to cover their pain, and then he handed them adoption papers making it legal that they signed children to Tann's orphanage. Also, they were easy targets because they are clueless, seeking any help they could get, and Tann appeared as an educated woman, therefore mothers were not hesitant to receive help from Tann. Next, we're going to talk about how Tann sold babies to only wealthy families to get money. Children were sold to up to $100,000. They were sold for her fortune, and she only abducted children from poor parents. Some think that Tann stole children from poor households and sold them to wealthy households to give children the life that Tann never got. But this was not at all Tann's intentions. Tann abducted children from poor households because she knew if parents were suspicious, then they could not afford to have the crime investigated. She sold to wealthy families because she knew the ones who could not have children would do anything to adopt a child. Therefore, Tann made millions of dollars selling children to wealthy couples. What led Tann to start a career in the social work? A lawyer was a manly job. She did not like playing the piano. Social work was more womanly. Fear of disappointing her dad. As a kid, Tann tremendously looked up to her father. Her father was the man who strived for authority, and this is where Tann got the need for authority. This is also where she learned how to master and manipulate. Throughout Tann's childhood, she dreamed to become a lawyer just like her father. The time period she was raised in, they were strict about man and woman roles. Tann's father believed being a lawyer was too manly for a woman, so he forced Tann to take piano lessons. Tann hated piano lessons but did not want to do anything to disappoint her father, so she continued her lessons with a smile while hating it. She even went to college and earned a music degree. She eventually explained to her father that she did not particularly enjoy playing the piano, and he suggested that she enter the social work career because it was appropriate for women. That summer, after graduating college with her music degree, she began taking classes to become a social worker. Her plan succeeded, and this is what led Tann to her disgusting Tennessee scandal. Next, we're going to talk about Tann posted ads in the newspaper. Her biggest hit was her Christmas ad. She sold children like they were toys, and she used it to gain new buyers, and her ads were persuasive. In order to lessen the chances of Tann getting caught, she had to make the buyers come to her. To do this, she posted newspaper ads acting like children were toys being sold. In her ad, she said, "They'd like to be your Christmas gift." Tann posted this ad in hopes people would consider a child to be their perfect Christmas gift, which meant that Tann would receive more money coming in at once. And on the picture on the right, you can see the 3 children that she posted and where she said that they would like to be your Christmas gift. Next, we're going to talk about the end of Tann's scandal. She did not face any consequences, some believe. She died of cancer. The investigation was released, and she was never caught. Information was still unknown about the scandal because of her death so early. Tann sold and abducted children for nearly 20 years. Throughout the 20 years, she never got caught by the law. Although there were plenty of people who reported and reached out to judges to try and expose Tann, but because of her connections, she was never caught for her crimes. Also, if anyone threatened to expose Tann, she came back threatening to abduct their child and sell them like she had done with other children. After a while, a light was starting to shine on the claims made about Tann. More and more people were coming up exposing Tann for the horrifying truth of her scandal. Tann's orphanage was being investigated, and the truth about Tann was finally going to reveal itself. Right when Tann was about to be caught, she passed away in 1950 of cancer. A lot of people were angered because Tann passed away without receiving any consequences. But I believe her suffering through cancer is a pretty hard consequence. Although this does not justify Tann, and I do not have empathy for her, I believe that cancer is a pretty hard way to die.